So, I understand that I was absent for quite a while now since my last video, and in that span of time, a lot has happened in the gaming spectrum. Now, I am going to talk about those at a later time, with what happened, in the Nintendo Treehouse and the PlayStation and Xbox apparently going exclusive. I'm going to talk about those at a later time, but now I want to focus our attention on the Pokemon showcase that everybody is currently talking about. It was something big, actually. And funny how, we had a Pokemon showcase, but apparently we still didn't even have a general direct yet. Of course, I'm talking about, the point that I made last video, given the general direct rumors turning out to be pure copium and whatnot. Anyways, moving on. Now let's talk about, the Pokemon Showcase. So the Pokemon Showcase was a little interesting. I'm sure they had a lot of cool announcements here and there, and interestingly, they tend to be fast-paced with their presentations. Nintendo Directs, tend to take a bit longer. They're still direct with their presentations, but with Pokemon presentations, they just showcase their products with no hints of commentary whatsoever. It's just, showcasing the trailers whatsoever with no commentary. And to be honest, I can't say that it was bad at all. I can't really say that it was that good, but I can't really say it's bad either. But I'm sure most of you, same as me, we weren't really focused on the entire presentation. It just felt like it was here and there with Pokemon products and Pokemon services. But I'm sure that what we did notice on the presentation was the next Pokemon generation game being announced. And to be honest, they really needed that after the backlash of Legends ZA. That is right, everyone. The leaks have been correct. I'm talking about Pokemon Winds and Waves that is going to be released exclusively on Switch 2 and is delayed all the way back to 2027. Yeah, I guess you can imagine all the backlash this delay situation has gotten, and this, switch to exclusivity as well. But before we talk about Winds and Waves, I just want to grab your attention to a few stuff that you probably missed, during the presentation. Of course, I'm talking about Fire Red and Leaf Green. Now, as we all know, Pokemon decided to release a Game Boy Color port to the Switch 2 and Switch 1 as well, of course. You can play Fire Red and Leaf Green on Switch 1, right? I don't know. Make sure to comment it down below. I didn't really check too much onto that part. And to be honest, I didn't really like that as much as the next person. Because not only did they decide to skip releasing it as part of Nintendo Classics, but it's also the exact same game with no current gen graphical enhancements, and you have to pay $20 for each. That is basically $40 down the drain. At this point, why am I even paying for NSO expansion pack if it's not for the GameCube games, along with the fact that I can play online and use my camera and whatnot? Why am I paying for NSO expansion pack? I mean, it's basically the same situation with console archives and Bomberman. Why am I paying NSO if Bomberman and console archives are not going to be part of NSO? I might as well just stick to emulators, I guess. Might as well just play those games legally onto my PC. I mean, we would have the exact same experience there. But then Pokemon Presents happened. And well, I guess they finally showed us why the games were like this. Now, I don't know if you guys heard, but when Fire Red and Leaf Green were first announced, the game's description stated that it would have Pokemon Home compatibility. And somehow that statement apparently got redacted, and this led people to believe that the games won't have compatibility to Pokemon Home at all. Which, why even bother buy it if you could just buy the emulator? But then Pokemon Presents finally showcased those games again, and right at the end, they confirmed the game's compatibility to Pokemon Home. So this is what you're paying your $20 for. If the game was released on NSO Classics, then there would be no compatibility to Pokemon Home at all. As for emulator and ROM PC players, yeah, good luck with connecting to Pokemon Home from your ROM hack or whatever. So if you want to play Fire Red or Leaf Green for the sake of just playing the game, then emulation is fine. This is basically the game for you to emulate. But if you want the compatibility to Pokemon Home as part of the package, then $20 Switch version of the game is for you. Now, moving on to the actual big topic, which was 99% of the focus of the presentation. And of course, I'm talking about Pokemon Winds and Waves. Now, the 2027 delay of the Pokemon Winds and Waves situation is being viewed in a very bad way through the internet's perspective. I mean, gamers were really looking forward to this game being released in 2026 after it was leaked back in 2025. And not only that, but it's also exclusive on the Switch 2, and it doesn't have a Switch 1 version. I mean, all those poor Pokemon Switch 1 fans not being able to play their games in their 10-year-old Switch 1. And to that I say, Gen 10 better deliver. And I'm not just talking about in the graphics and texture of the game, but I'm also talking about the performance. This better be part of a genuine Switch 2 mainline of games rather than just a Switch 1 project that was minimally optimized for the Switch 2. I mean, in terms of the footage that we have seen, it does look like a Switch 1 game, but I do hope that it is, an actual part of the mainline Switch 2 projects. Then people would see why this game is actually exclusive to Switch 2 and not, it doesn't have a Switch 1 version at all. I mean, and the game is going to release in 2027. They don't have that Switch 1 excuse anymore. Now, as for what the game would look like, we don't know. We actually don't know what the game is actually going to look like. This is because the trailer that we have seen isn't really part of the gameplay footage at all. It's just a showcase of what the game may look like, but that is not, part of the, development or anything. And that's because the trailer that we saw isn't really part of the gameplay footage. It even said at the bottom of the screen as they played the trailer footage. So as far as I'm concerned, the texture and the performance of the footage actually look good, especially the waves. The texture and the graphics of the waves actually look amazing if you compare it to other Pokemon games. I'm already having good hopes for the game, despite this again not being actual game footage. And the art style isn't really different from vanilla Pokemon and what they used to do with Scarlet and Violet as well. But it is different in a way that makes the protagonist characters look more unique. If you actually focus on the protagonist characters, they actually look more unique than the other protagonists of other Pokemon games, which I would say is actually them heading in a good direction. Either way, this looks fine, and I do hope they further polish this game for 2027. I don't think of them delaying the game in 2027 is a bad thing at all. Because I would rather play a more polished Pokemon game that can actually rival games like Power World and Animo rather than play something that was rushed in development, similar to what we have seen with Legends ZA. Speaking of Legends ZA, I really hope that Winds and Waves doesn't do Day 1 DLC. This is why Legends ZA failed, because of Day 1 DLC. And why is this so important is that I want them to actually take their time to develop a good base game and think of DLC later, uh, rather than what they did with Legends ZA, because, Legends ZA took 3 years in development, but in actuality, they developed both the base game and the DLC in that 3-year lifespan. So Basically, they developed the base game in a 1.5 years, which is not a game that you would sell for $70, and they developed the DLC as well in 1.5 years, which again, they you still paid $30 extra for this DLC. It all feels rushed, and I really hope they don't do that for Winds and Waves. So that is my inputs on Winds and Waves. I still have more questions than answers about the game itself, due to the fact that we don't have real in-game footage or anything. But I'm actually looking forward to the game, all in all. Now, there is something that I want to mention about the presentation that people didn't really focus on like I did. I mean, again, 99% of you only focused on Pokemon Winds and Waves. I'm guessing you just kind of skipped or skimmed through the rest of the presentation. But as I was looking at the presentation, I focused on a specific game that is being released on NSO Classics. That is right, I am talking about Pokemon XD finally being released for Nintendo Classics. Now, why is this important to me personally? It's not important to the public at all, I'm just saying. But why is it important to me personally? Is because, Pokemon XD is a game that I played in my youth a long time ago. And I never really got to finish it because, it was a long time ago during my childhood. And during my childhood, I never got to finish any game, let alone Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door. I couldn't even finish the first world. And at the time, since I was a child and all, I didn't even have a GameCube of my own at the time. I used to borrow my uncle's GameCube. I used to play the games there. And Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door, along with Pokemon XD, and other games were what led me to become a Nintendo fan in this day and age. Now, Pokemon XD specifically was mainly why I got into the Pokemon, gaming spectrum in the first place. I really wish there were other Pokemon games that were similar to what we had with Pokemon XD, being Final Fantasy like and all, but then again, I underestimated Nintendo's, Pokemon company's capabilities of recreating that. So having a chance to finally try out and finish the game is basically like a nostalgic dream come true. I really love Pokemon XD, and I really am looking forward to finishing it this time, something that I didn't do during my childhood. So that is my current input with the Pokemon presentation. That is everything that I have to say for now. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But anyways, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and hope you enjoyed the video. Peace!